Where we can put it? Put it here.
And I think as you hear us again that he's correct. Thank you very much. Other than being a member of officer of the British Bill on the Vision, they try our social practice. That's been clear, overall. I'm already ready to be up with our countries. The problems last Parliament and partly affect not only the other countries, but also the wrong knowledge to develop countries.
It goes by different names. Back then it was called colonialism. While came up with neo-colonialism. Then they came up with globalization. And now it's called neoliberalism. The name may change, but the game stays the same. So lastly, I would say, beware President Obama's commitment to Asia. Don't get tricked and don't get fooled.
And therefore, he also controlled the adaptation. In a sense of it, and the US of US it's not also who see backgrounds at the table of economic and legal process. But instead, we then at the very of the land and side.
I think so. And then try it on your phone.
Operates together. We march. Together we started.
That is correct.
Imperialism, warrior Palestine, Rocky Palestine, freedom from Palestine.
Over the next 4 years and beyond, we must boldly expand and widen the anti-imperialist United Front into a truly global force, capable of organizing against imperialism on all fronts.
The correctness of the United Years. Yes, we've struggled and worked very hard. Force the NGS to become the member of ILPS. Some leaders will use powerful others and think of their sound and their lives and their kind of, taught my mother and I just mentioned.
To share information, experiences, and updates on struggles taking place in the regions. Widely propagate needs to generate awareness and support. Non-solidarity actions in support of particular national and regional issues and action. Take advantage of online technology and social media for making public awareness of issues of imperialist globalization and the social justice. Promote ILPS as a global anti-imperialist alliance, especially among different mass organizations in countries where mass struggles and liberation movements are emerging and growing.
We are here from all over the globe because we all face the same global crisis. We are organizing in a room that is truly better.
The tonight call of the assembly is started.
Great, so I hope you enjoyed that highlight reel of the ILPS assembly once again. Thank you so much for making it through the rain to come to this report back. And just to let you all know, there are folders on each chair that has documents that you should refer to as the different panelists present. The first document on the right side will go over the 17 concerns of ILPS, and then the following documents have So up next will be Berna Ellerin, chairperson of IN USA, who will go into an explanation of ILPS.
Hi, good evening. Bill, Lynn, and myself were also elected into the leadership of ILPS, the International Coordinating Committee, back last November at the 5th International Assembly in Manila. So I'll talk about ILPS in the basic sense. So this is the logo. So the International League of People struggle Thank you. The International League of People Struggle is an anti-imperialist and democratic formation. This is taken out of the General Charter of the ILPS. It promotes, supports, and develops the anti-imperialist and democratic struggles of the peoples of the world against imperialism and all reaction. It has a broad mass character and not subordinate to any political party, government, or religion, and affords equality to all participating organizations. It strives to realize the unity, cooperation, and coordination of anti-imperialist and democratic struggles throughout the world. The League fights for the following concerns, and there are 17 of them. Number one, the cause of national liberation, democracy, and social liberation against imperialism and all reaction. Each of these concerns also represents a commission, which is also a structure within the overall League that also operates on its own. So you can join the League as part of a commission as well. Number two, I'm sorry, this is number 10. Oh shit, that's number 3. So, number 10, the rights of indigenous peoples, national minorities, and nationalities for self-determination and decolonization against discrimination, racism, national oppression by imperialism and local reaction. Number 3, human rights in the civil, political, economic, social, and cultural fields against state violence, national oppression, class exploitation and oppression, gender oppression, fascism, casteism, racism, and religious bigotry, and justice and indemnification for the victims of illegal arrest and detention, especially political prisoners, violations of due process, torture, extrajudicial executions, disappearances, mass displacement, and other blatant forms of human rights violations. Number 4, the cause of just peace and struggles against wars of counter-revolution and aggression against nuclear, biological, chemical, missile, and other weapons of mass destruction. Number 5, promotion of trade union and other democratic rights of the working class, improvement of wage and living conditions against all forms of intensifying exploitation of labor and destruction of working class organizations in their pursuit of the historical mission of fighting for social liberation. Number 6, agrarian reform and rights of peasants, farm workers, and fisher folk against feudal, semi-feudal, and capitalist exploitation and oppression. Number 7, the cause of women's liberation and rights against all forms of sexual discrimination, exploitation, and violence. Number 8, the rights of the youth to education and employment. Yay. Number 9, children's rights against child labor, sexual abuse, and other forms of exploitation. Number 10, no, it's number 10. I read that already. Number 11, so we're missing number 2. The rights of teachers, researchers, and other educational personnel, and struggles against ideas and researchers directed against the people. Number 12, the right of the people to health and the rights of health workers. Number 13, science and technology for the people and development, environmental protection against plunder and pollution, and the destruction of the foundations of human life, the right to safe and healthy food and water, and opposition to manipulation of genetic technology for imperialist profit. Number 14, arts and culture and free flow of information in the service of the people and the rights of artists, creative writers, journalists, and other cultural workers against imperialist and reactionary propaganda and oppression. Number 15, the rights and welfare of homeless persons, refugees, and migrant workers displaced by imperialism and local reactionaries. Number 16, the rights of elderly and differently abled people to a life of dignity and secure existence. And number 17, and not in any order of importance, but this is number 17. The rights of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgender people against discrimination, intolerance, and homophobia. So those are the 17 concerns of the ILPS that it fights for. And like I said earlier, each of these, while the league in total is a co-coalition in form, which has members, it is also constructed where each concern has its own commission. And the commission is mainly a study commission or a campaign commission. So these commissions have their own activities and their own programs, even between the general assemblies of the entire league. So the global region, so the league is also broken up, structured as follows. It's structured into global regions. So the global regions of the ILPS are East Asia and Oceania, Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, and Western Europe. The country chapters, we can establish country chapters of the ILPS as well. We have official country chapters in Australia, Canada, the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Indonesia, the Philippines, and the United States. So the US chapter we founded back in 2012 in Chicago, to coincide with the meeting of NATO. So, and we also have eminent persons. In the charter they're called patrons of the league, but so far our 2 eminents are women, so they're patrons of the league. They are Leila Khaled and Cynthia McKinney, who accepted the invitation to be eminent persons of the league in Manila last year. So that's it. What does it mean to join the league? It means the basis of unity are the 17 concerns, basically. And if you can unite with one of the concerns, even if not all of 17, you're qualified to join ILPS. Everyone is invited. You can join online. And for there is a form online. If you go to ilps.info, the general charter is there. You can review. There's also there's a folder, I believe, with a form, right? Yeah. So just a little bit about the assembly that just happened in Manila, which was the 5th International Assembly. There were over 400 delegates and guests who were there, representing 180 organizations from 40 countries, territories, and autonomous regions. Leila Khaled and Cynthia McKinney were our 2 keynote speakers who also became eminents of the league. And it was I think that the delegates are going to go more into detail with the commissions, but so each of the commissions also met and held workshops and also had came out with resolutions for their specific concern. And so our panel of delegates will go more into the resolution, so thank you. Oh, one thing about dues, it is members do pay dues for, if you're from a developing country or a poor country, you pay $50. If you're from a developed country or an imperialist country or an advanced capitalist country, you pay $150 per year. Yeah. Per organization. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Berna, for that overview. So all of us here on this panel, including myself, we're actually delegates at the ILPS 5th International Assembly. So we are now going to go more in depth on the issues that were covered in specific commissions and different discussions that were had at the Assembly. But just to introduce everyone, starting on the farthest end is Natalie Agosto of New York Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines. Then there's Berna Elarin again of Bayan USA. Then there's Margaret Kimberly of United National Anti-War Committee and also Black Agenda Report. Next to her is Bill Doors of the International Action Center. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it out tonight, but Fatima Herrera will also be joining us over Google Hangout if the Wi-Fi permits, and she is from Palestinian Youth Movement. And then on Bill's left is Lynn Mesa of Chelsea Uniting Against the War. Next to her is Ruthie Arroyo of Anacaya, New Jersey. Then Janine Ventura of Gabriela, New York. Lauren Quijano of Anacaya, New York. And then Casey Jin of Anacaya, New York. So the way this is going to work is in all of your folders, there are little post-it notes. So if you have any questions or comments, there's also a pen inside the folder. So please hold your questions till the end, and then there will be a Q&A that will be facilitated by Casey, who will get your questions and then say them out loud in the podium. So please write them as each presenter goes, and then also refer to the documents that are in your folder that has more information on the 17 concerns and also the different resolutions in each commission is covered. All right, so first up will be Margaret Kimberly on Commission 1.
It's just a few photos I wanted to nothing else. Yeah. It's like there's something already in. Hello. Let's see. Well, that's okay, I guess. Huh? Oh, well. Nope, missed it right. I gotta, anyway. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Margaret Kimberly, and as you heard, I'm an editor and senior columnist at Black Agenda Report, and I'm also on the administrative committee of UNAC, the United National Anti-War Coalition. And I was honored to be a guest at the 5th International Assembly and to be here with you all tonight. It was a great opportunity, it was an amazing experience for me, a person who, thinks of herself as being very well informed, but it was an experience where I realized I had a lot more to learn, so it was amazing. I participated in Commission 1, which is the cause of national liberation, democracy, and social liberation against imperialism and all reaction. And I thought it was interesting to read the first paragraph of the resolution. It says, quote, amid the worsening, protracted world capitalist crisis and imperialist wars, ILPS Commission 1 calls on the oppressed and exploited peoples of the world to intensify the struggle for national liberation, democracy, and social liberation. We call on the people to wage and expand militant struggles and to strengthen solidarity among the various groups and movements asserting national sovereignty, democratic rights, and social justice. At the Commission workshop, I spoke about the U.S. foreign policy in Africa, but tonight I'm going to discuss international solidarity as it relates to our struggles here in the U.S. and why it's so important for these struggles to be linked. One of the photos I was looking for was to talk about a piece of little-known history about the Philippine-American War. In 2009, Black Agenda Report printed an article written by Neil Barringer, who's here somewhere, and it was about Black soldiers who were sent to fight the Filipino resistance, but who instead ended up joining it. And it's not really surprising, yes. Of course, they experienced racism as Black people in the United States and within their ranks in the military. But then they saw the inherent racism in America's violent intervention in the Philippines. And of course, the so-called insurgents. I don't know why people are called insurgents when they're fighting for their own countries. But anyway, some people were, the Filipinos were called insurgents because they wouldn't just, lie down and let America take over their country. But they also voiced their desire, the mutual desire to be free from oppression. And they recruited some of these soldiers. One of the letters reads as follows, quote, to the colored American soldiers, it is without honor that you shed your precious blood. Your masters have thrown you in the most iniquitous fight with double purpose, to make you the instrument of their ambition, and also your hard work will soon make the extension of your race. Your friends the Filipinos give you this good warning. You must consider your situation and your history. There was a man named David Fagan who was one of those soldiers, and he joined one of the segregated regiments in 1898, but in 1899, he joined the Filipino forces. And there was press information, New York Times headline, American deserter, a Filipino general. He was a corporal in the U.S. Army and became a general of the Filipino struggle. And he was a determined fighter for the cause of liberation. So much so that he ended up with a $600 bounty on his head. And he is said to have been killed for that reward, but there are also rumors that he survived. But regardless of his ultimate fate, his story tells us a lot about international solidarity and about what it should look like. The Commission 1 resolution included this language about the struggle here in the United States. Quote, we support the struggle of the American people against the imperialist neoliberal offensive, wars of aggression, racism, state repression, surveillance, police violence, mass incarceration, and other violations of civil liberties. The war against Black Americans is a microcosm of imperialist action seen all over the world. Thanks to the struggles of people in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, and in Baltimore, Maryland in 2015, the whole world knows the depth of violence directed at Black people here and the many extrajudicial killings that are committed with iniquity. With impunity. It is iniquitous too, isn't it? Last year, 2015, by one estimate, more than 1,000 people, 1,134 people were killed by the police, and 300 of those persons were Black. And yes, it does happen, as the Malcolm X grassroots movement told us, roughly every 28 hours. When we engage in acts of solidarity, We learn about police violence all over the world. In Palestine, for example, where an apartheid state exists and men, women, and children can be killed or imprisoned or have their homes destroyed. International solidarity brings much needed analysis and shows the common ground that is shared by oppressed people all over the world. Without realizing it, the people of Ferguson and Baltimore were doing the work urged by Commission 1 because they probably didn't know that about ILPS. They didn't know that they were working to, quote, expand militant struggles, unquote. Our efforts to mobilize ourselves and others are often not easy. We sometimes struggle with one another to determine best strategies and tactics. The ILPS Commission discussions and the General Declaration were the result of hours of debate, friendly amendments, unfriendly amendments, but that's all to the good. Through a democratic process, the Assembly ended with a commitment to its mission. And it's important that we remember these words in 2016, a presidential election year, where we can be confused by the bread and circuses that happens every 4 years in this country. There is no presidential candidate among the Democrats or Republicans who is anti-imperialist, not one. Hillary Clinton bragged about killing Gaddafi, and Bernie Sanders called the thrice-elected Hugo Chavez a dead dictator. And we can't forget that people in this country make their greatest strides engaging in mass action, and sometimes even when they could not vote. So we have to encourage each other and reach out to people like Sandra Bland's mother and Eric Garner's daughter, who've endorsed Bernie Sanders. I don't want to criticize them, but it's important to reach out to them so they know a new way of fighting back against the terror that took their loved ones. So I will just say this: long live international solidarity. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Margaret. Next up is Natalie to talk about their experiences in Commission number 2.
So my commission was the one that the slideshow did not want to show, which is commission number 2. And that's the socioeconomic development for oppressed and exploited countries and nations and social equity for all working people. Which can be summed up in a word as neoliberalism and dealing with the effects of that. So, computer's working a little slow right now, but anyway, when we think about the context of the fact that we are in New York City, this word neoliberalism really comes to life for us in a different way. And so when we think about capitalism and we think about the system of imperialism, neoliberal policies are the defense mechanism for how they maintain their power. And so that is why it's super important that we talk about this, and that's why the commission number 2 conversation that came up was super important. So one of the things that's coming up right now, which was just signed about a week ago in New Zealand, was the TPPA, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. And in this agreement, among other various free trade policies, which would open up the doors for the people in those countries to be further oppressed. It would also allow for corporations to sue countries if they did not adhere to what the corporation wanted. So for example, Dole in the Philippines, if Dole wanted to do something in the Philippines and the Philippine government said, no, that's gonna harm the people, you cannot do that. And as a result, they lost profits, Dole could sue the Philippine government for standing up for the rights of the people. And so that's one of the things that this agreement of the TPPA would allow for to happen. So these 12 countries have already signed: Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, Vietnam, Japan, and the United States. And in addition, there are other countries that are looking to sign, including the Philippines, which is why it's so important, which is why the work is not done yet. We must continue to raise awareness as to why this is going to be so damaging and why this is so violent to the people. And not just the TPPA, right, but other trade agreements like it that they continually try to push through. And so it's very important, as we talked about in Commission 2, to kind of talk more about what would be the results of these trade agreements, right? So for example, if we think about places like the Philippines, again, I can use as an example, the mining corporations are able to go in there, they encroach upon the land of the Lumad, so the Lumad are the indigenous people living in Mindanao in the Philippines. And this constantly came up in Commission 2 in terms of the fact that these mining corporations and other corporations like Dole will go in, take the land from the people, and the people have no rights to be able to ask for the land back or to take the land back. And so when the people do resist, when the people organize, they are met with military strength that tries to crush their movements. 60% of the military in the Philippines is deployed to Mindanao. So if you actually think about how big Mindanao is, it's probably roughly around the size of Texas is the way it was described to me, which is actually very small for 60% of a military, of a whole country's military to be deployed there, right? If you think about the United States, if we deployed 60% of our military to Texas, that would be crazy for the people of Texas. So that's just to kind of contextualize the conditions that the folks in Mindanao are living in. And this is a result of the free trade agreements. And if the TPPA is signed by the Philippines, this will only further exacerbate the situation there. The TPPA also puts a limit on our environmental protections, and other free trade agreements also put limits on our environmental protections. So these pictures, the first picture over here on my left, your right, is a picture of a river in the Philippines in Mindanao from my first trip in 2013. And that river used to be completely clear. It is siltated because of the chemicals from the mining corporations. And the people told stories of how their carabao and would drink from the water and would die. And if you know anything about the Philippines, and in Mindanao particularly, the countryside, it's a farming area, right? So if their carabao dies, that's the equivalent of not having any more tractor, not having any more mechanisms to be able to farm. And so it takes away their livelihood. The picture down here is also from that trip, and these are the results of pesticides. I don't know if you can see it, but his skin is turning white and kind of bleaching. It's the result of pesticides from the Dole plantation. And if you look there, that's the result of Typhoon Yolanda in the Philippines also. Because when we take away the trees, we're taking away natural barriers from the way that, that storms destroy the land. If we think about Flint, Michigan, so if we think about how neoliberal policies affect our own United States, if we think about Flint, Michigan, where we have a crisis right now where many have been poisoned because the government decided that it would switch the water supply to cut costs so that they could put the money into other things that were less important. To cut costs, they poisoned a whole community that they deemed unvaluable, and in order to cut costs and to try to privatize things, right? And this is the result. This is the result of these type of agreements, right? So some of the highlights of Commission 2 were that we talked about Conference on Sustainable Development that took place in Bangkok, UN Conference on Sustainable Development Summit in Brazil, formation of Indonesian People's Alliance in Jakarta, People's Global Camp in Bali, the People's Climate March, as well as various primers and statements that were written. So these were done before the Fifth Assembly. And then these are the resolutions and proposals, which are also in your packet. But I'm being told that time is up, so I gotta be out. But please look through it, and these are the specific resolutions as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, both Natalie and Margaret, for contextualizing the commissions for us and why it's important to continue building ILPS here in the United States. For the next presenter, it's going to be Fatin of Palestinian Youth Movement. So we're just going to try to call her because she's unfortunately sick, but she still wants to join us. So I hope you enjoy the music as you wait. Hi, Poppy. Can you try talking and we'll see if it's amplified? Not here. No. Oh, okay, they can hear you now, I think. Okay, can you folks hear now? Is this? She is gonna call us back due to the quality of the call. Also, I don't think I got to introduce myself. I'm Nina Mafatima.
All right, I think here we go.
Hi. Yeah, can you try talking? Can folks hear her? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah. They can all see you.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry everyone that I'm not there. My name is Paxton. I'm happy to be here. It's more so than spirit. My name is Paxton Serrana, and I'm a member of the Palestinian movement. I'm also a member of the New York Palestine Rights Return Coalition and New York City Palestine. When I went to the Philippines to attend the ILPS conference, I was representing the UIM, Palestinian movement. I went with two other Palestinian movement members. They were coming from California, around Southern California. Unlike them, I only actually stayed for the conference. They were able to attend, and they actually had recently a report back session in the SoCal area about ILPS and their experience in the Philippines. They were able to visit places outside of Manila, including Mindanao and places of people who are fighting for their land and being displaced and oppressed because of the situation there. So I was, what I would say about the ILPS is it was for one thing, although there are many things about ILPS that were incredible, is the fact that we got to see so many amazing people all over the world, so many people that you could connect to, migrants, laborers, people, indigenous people who were being enslaved, and many people, especially in the Philippines, who, I didn't really know that much about, and I remember talking to Nina and others before we got there. I was like, one of the reasons why I'm really interested in growing is because, I've seen, Bayan, and Bayan, for example, represent the Philippines in rallies, like in solidarity actions that we do, with Palestinians and other oppressed people, but I really don't know that much. And I've only really spent 3 days for just at the ILPS conference, being there. One of the things that I really took away from that was incredible is the solidarity night with those Black people. So a few of us were able to attend this incredible night, and we really got to see firsthand what was happening to people. So it was like a solidarity night, and in which we went to the evacuation center of the Rumat people, and different people took the stage. There were performances by children who are not able to go to school because they were displaced. There were speeches by relatives of people activists who were being killed, and land activists who were fighting to stay in their lands, basically. And it was incredible. It was absolutely you could really relate so much as a Palestinian, especially with these people who are getting displaced, who are getting moved around, and even Leila Khalid herself. And I'm sure you all have seen the pictures that are presented there. I saw pictures of the pictures, so I know that they're there. Even she said that it was, didn't really realize how bad it was, you know, and that we as Palestinians understand what they're going through in many ways, and this is why we all need to stay together. Of course, it's not limited to Palestine, it's not limited to the Philippines, this is all over the place. That was really, for me, probably the highlight. Another highlight was, obviously, you know, all of us getting together, keynote speakers like Leila Khalid and as well as the demonstrations that we were part of, that a few of us were able to attend, in which, like, we were holding up posters of it was a commemoration of the massacre that happened. Also for activists were also displaced. A lot of the cases were young people like me and Nina and everybody, a lot of the people inside the school, I'm sure, just fighting for the land, such spaces, such, you know, activists were just doing something that they should have been killed for. And, you know, it was also really, I don't want to say incredible because I don't want to, it was just absolutely emotional for me to see those specific cases. One of the things that happened at the ILPS is the announcement of the launch of the Palestine, I just want to get the center of what is it called, you know?
Philippine Palestine Friendship
Association.
Yes. Philippine Palestine Friendship Association. Sorry, just allow me
Sorry.
It's Philippine Palestine Friendship Association.
Philippine Palestine Friendship Association. That was announced at the conference. And I think that it had been launched before, but it was being relaunched at the time of the conference. There were a lot of, you know, a lot of the bills that were passed in the assembly of the ILPS had to do with the solidarity of the Palestinian people as well. And, you know, the QIM, Leila Khalid, and the person who was representing from Group who actually ended up being on the General Coordinating Committee, being nominated and then voted into ILPS's Coordinating Committee, where we're all there, we all gave input, and I think at the ILPS, they decided that they would also endorse the student commemoration that's happening in 2018. So stay tuned to that because it's going to be the 50th anniversary of that. That's going to be something really big, and we're all gearing up for it. If you have any questions, please ask Nina. And like I said, probably we'll have a representative now for the next 2 years on the General Coordinating Committee of the ILPS. And that was really exciting for us to see the integration of
yeah, time's up right now. So that's
my mom. First, I'm really sorry that I wasn't here.
It's okay. Here's a picture of everyone so you can see. There's a lot of them. Sorry, what was that?
I said I'll stick around, I'll hang up, but I'll stick around if there's any questions. Maybe I'll call you back.
You can watch the live stream.
Yeah, you can watch the live stream. There's a live stream link on the Facebook event.
Okay, so I'll do that then.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Great, so I hope that gave you an idea of the Palestinian youth movement experience there, and also the experience of building solidarity between Palestine and the Philippines. Up next will be Lynn Meza, but before you go, Bill actually will be next to talk about Commission 4. So please give it up for Bill.
The ILPS exists because there's a war going on. It's raging in California and Kurdistan, in the Bronx, in Beirut, in East LA and in East Ukraine, in Palestine, in the Philippines, in South America and South Africa. It's a global war of the wealthy and powerful against the poor and oppressed and working class of the world. And Manila, in November, became a front line in that war as President Barack Obama and 18 other heads of state and government joined 7,000 corporate CEOs for the Asia Pacific Economic Summit. And they came to make decisions that will destroy livelihoods all over the world. And we'll hear more about that from Lynn, but I want to say that it wasn't the only gathering of the wealth of powerful people that took place in Manila that month, because the Fifth International Assembly of the International League of People's Struggle is also a gathering of people whose power comes from a different place, people whose power comes from producing the wealth of the world, of workers and farmers and fisher people and students. And I think perhaps one of the most, we've spoken about the two keynote speakers, Cynthia McKinney and Leila Khalid. Does everybody know who they are? Because I found some people who didn't. Leila Khalid was a hero of the Palestinian resistance movement who made Palestine a household word when it was suppressed back in 1969 by hijacking a TWA flight, a TWA plane to Jordan, and then her face became the face of the Palestinian resistance worldwide, so well known she had plastic surgery and hijacked another plane for the purpose of gaining the freedom of political prisoners being held by the Israeli state. Cynthia McKinney, of course, is a former representative from Georgia who took a courageous stand against the Iraq War and also for Palestine, and was basically forced out of Congress. The theme of the assembly, sorry, these newfangled contraptions here, which is for a socially just world, strengthen people's solidarity, and intensify the struggle against imperialist plunder, crisis, and war, has become even more relevant in the intervening months as we see the rapidly escalating economic crisis of the capitalist system, with the crashing prices of oil and stocks and other commodities. And for imperialism, economic crisis almost inevitably leads to wider and wider wars. Monopoly capitalism arose out of economic crisis. It was the long depression of 1873 that sent the European powers scrambling to carve up Africa at the same time as the ruling class here overthrew Reconstruction in the South and initiated the wars against the people of the plains. the native people of the plains. And it was the Panic of 1893 that sent the U.S. into invading the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. The anniversary of the Philippine-American War, we're also marking this month. You know, the United States, Wall Street banks and corporations owe their world position to the destruction of the Second World War, and the United States has been waging war after war to maintain that world position. And that brings me to Commission 4, which is a commission on war and peace against imperialist war. And we identified places around the world from the so-called Middle East, including Syria and Palestine, Yemen, where the United States is waging proxy wars, the growing tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, in Latin America, where the U.S. is trying to overthrow the government in Venezuela, the growing U.S. military presence in Africa, the war on the border of Russia and East Ukraine. This is all a part of an imperialist imperialist acceleration of imperialist crisis, and it shows the urgent need for international solidarity. We came together because we know that the bombs, the guns, and the kill people in Ferguson and in the Bronx and in Chicago and Cleveland are the same bombs and guns, the same war machine that murders children in Palestine and Syria and Ukraine and South America and Guatemala. And we came together because we know that international solidarity, there's nothing more important than a unified global resistance. And with that, we're able to do that in imperialism's time will also be up. And if your organization is not part of ILPS, I urge you to join and to fight with us around the 17 concerns, and we have a war to win.
Thank you, Bill. So yes, please continue referring to the documents in your folder and writing any questions down that you may have. At the end, Casey will collect them, and there'll be time for question and answer. So right now we're going to go into a video that goes into the anti-APEC rallies that happen right after ILPS. So the ILPS is not just an assembly to talk about resolutions, but it's also a fighting assembly that was especially timed to combat this gathering of the world's largest leaders that were coming together to talk about free trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. So, ILPS delegates experience with the anti-APEC rally, which was 5,000 plus strong, is Lynn Meza of Chelsea United Against the War. Please give it up for her.
So I'm going to do this a little different. My granddaughter says I'm the youngest old person she knows. I'm 70 years old. I first got involved in my first political activity was to go to Washington in 1963 in the historic part of Washington. I was moved by the hundreds of thousands of Afro-American youth there. Never did hear Martin Luther King speak, but I saw those youth and it changed my life. In 1967, I had the fortune to meet a revolutionary leader who's known as Ray Light, and he was one of the founding members of the ILPS ICC, who recruited me to become a revolutionary. I'm the secretary of Chelsea United Against the War. That's our banner up there. Chelsea United stands talks about Guyana. We're based in an immigrant Latin American community, working class community in Chelsea. I'm honored to have been involved with the ILPS since the beginning. Chelsea United affiliated right after we formed in 2004. But my union, which I was the vice president of, had our solidarity committee go to the founding assembly in 2001. And I was involved with mobilizing that group in that activity. I'm the auditor of the ILPS with Cheeto. He's not here anymore. Yeah, he had that position before me. And I was honored in the International Assembly to be one of the 5 members of the Presidium, along with Len Cooper from the labor movement in Australia, Malcolm Guy from Canada, Fernando from Mexico, Carol Arroyo for the Philippines. And one of the highlights of the assembly was the significant Latin American participation. I'm really happy that Antonio is here with us from Ecuador tonight as part of that delegation. Now, the APEC protest. I've been inspired by the cultural presentations in the Philippines, so this is sort of like a little effort to do something like that. At first, I want to say, I grew up in New York City, and one of my proudest moments was in 2003 when there were 500,000 people here in the streets opposing U.S. going to war against Iraq. Those were Afro-American workers, Latino workers, Filipino workers, Chinese workers, white workers in the streets in New York. So we've done it here, but I agree with Margaret. In this time, the question of anti-imperialism is not on the agenda. So it's up to people like us to put it out there. It was said, Nina said it, Verna said it, this was an action assembly. The site of the assembly was chosen to coincide with the APEC meeting. It was chosen so that we could participate in the demonstrations that were being held against APEC. But demonstrations in the Philippines are not like demonstrations here in the US. Like back in 2003, we shut down the traffic and everything. But there was no organization in the Philippines, man. Everything is planned ahead of time. So the demonstration itself was only, 2 hours? But we had days of preparation. So we had our delegates from the US, and we broke into little teams because we didn't want the police to know who we were, because it was in all the press. Any foreign person that participates in the demonstrations will be arrested and deported. That was a serious threat. But our Filipino comrades and friends said, don't worry, we will protect you. And they did. They marched in front of us, on the sides of us. They kept us protected. And one of the most moving moments to me was when these teenagers, Filipino teenagers, were in front of me and said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you." So we decided we're going to go forward with the march, but we were going to join the march. We had to meet in small areas and then join in because the police was dispersing things. And the Lumen people, who had come 800 strong from Mindanao by land, and some of the leaders in Manila, Filipino leading organizers, said, we tried to discourage them because we had so many other things going on. We didn't know if we could handle one more thing, but they insisted, and it's a good thing they did. They were wonderful. But they were 800, they were blocked in. They weren't allowed to participate in the march. There were other delegations that were cut off. So our US delegation, how many do we have, 50 people or something? So we were broken into little groups of 8 or something like that. Now, we had these shirts, and we had our identification, but you couldn't let anyone see that. So we had to look like we were tourists. So we had to go prepared, bring our water bottles, be ready for the tear gas. But we don't put that on now because you don't want anyone to see. So we went with our little group, and we were going to stand and wait for the rest of the people to come. And the march was going by. So our leader said, come, we got to join. So we all joined in the march, and we took off our shirts, and we put on our hats, and we put on our, I don't think I'm doing this very well. We put on our banners and everything, and we chanted, remember? U.S. imperialism, #1 terrorist. U.S. imperialism,
#1 terrorist.
U.S. imperialism, #1 terrorist. Junk APEC, junk APEC. So we went until we were blocked by the police with water hoses. The instructions went out. Protect your cell phone. Get ready. So we saw the water hoses there, and we saw the people up in the front lines, and all of a sudden, yay! I thought we broke through the barricade. The police ran out of water. So anyway, it was wonderful, and we really made a contribution. And Lila spoke from the podium there to the thousands of mainly Filipino people that were out in the streets. Fernando, we had actually elected to speak, so unfortunately it didn't work out because I think the cops were trying to break us up, so we had to disperse. So this is really what ILPS is about. It's about joint action against imperialism headed by US imperialism. And we need to bring that into the belly of the beast. So I hope we can all move forward together with that.
Thank you, Lynn, for reenacting the anti-APEC. Up next is Ruthie Arroyo and Afaya, New Jersey, to talk about the Bayan Peace Mission, which happened afterwards.
How's everyone doing? Awkward silence.
Yeah, just to contextualize, the Buy in Peace mission happened after the ILPS assembly and after the anti-APEC rally. To learn more about what U.S. intervention looked like in the island of Mindanao. So some of us had the opportunity to go there, and Ruthie will talk about the trip and what we were able to learn. Loading. Cool. Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Ruthie. I am from Anaquaya, New Jersey. I was one of the contingents for the Buy in Peace mission. So Buy in Peace mission is something that we want to do every year. Send contingents from all across the U.S. to forge solidarity for the people of the Philippines. So for this mission, we chose to go to Mindanao. Now, why Mindanao? Because of the historical U.S. intervention and U.S. presence in Mindanao, we chose to be there to see what is really going on. And especially since we are from the U.S., it is important to be aware and become more involved so that we can intensify what we are fighting for here in the U.S. Okay, so from the Treaty of Paris, where Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao was sold by Spain to the U.S. for $20 million, to the establishment of the Mindanao Commission, where the U.S. sent their generals to survey the area of Mindanao and classify the people there as civilized and uncivilized, to the Cooper Act of 1901, which legitimized land grabbing and which gave way for foreign corporations to own land, especially U.S. businesses. So those are just some of like the historical things to put in context how long the U.S. has been in Mindanao, especially. So today, Aquino and Obama have announced their intentions for the Philippines to be part of the TPPA, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which essentially opens up the Philippines for foreign investors. So, okay. How do I go? Okay, next. Oh. Okay. So, Mindanao is resource rich. There's oil, there's natural gases, there's gold, there's copper, there's nickel. So many resources in Mindanao. It is also culturally rich. Spain was not able to colonize Mindanao, so they were able to preserve their culture. There's also a long history of resistance. The people, especially, for example, the Moro communities that we met, they were talking about there was a massacre in 1913, and the U.S. couldn't kill the Moro fighters. So they created this gun called caliber 45, calibre 45, so that they can kill the Moro fighters quicker. Yeah. So there's two national minorities, the Lumay and the Moro, or the Bangsamoro. So we went to, this is Mindanao. There's two arrows. One on the left or your right is Cotabato City, which is where we met many of the Moro, Bangsamoro. And then in Davao, Compostela, and Davao region and Compostela Valley is where we went for the Lumad. So, okay, so let's talk about the Moro and Bangsamoro. Oh, why is it going that way? Okay, so this is a short clip of us in Cotabato. Oh. This is Teresa from Anaquaya, New York, who is still in Mindanao right now.
Yun. So we had to cross this river to go and meet with leaders from the area called Ampatuan, Datu, Saudi Ampatuan. So this is Cotabato City. This was the man who is standing is one of the Purok leaders who talked to us about the history of more self-determination. This is them again. And then we also met with one of the barangay captains of one of the bigger barangays, which has like about 7,000 people, which is, yeah, in Kipango. Okay, so, and in Kitango, they talked about the wars of aggression that has happened. There's this thing that they call all-out wars, which was started by, in 2003, during Arab Estrada's regime. It's between the AFP and the MILF. So it's basically, when they say there's an all-out war, it's basically like a free-for-all for the AFP to just kind of go to communities and just strafe communities. And yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a civilian, it's just, they just go at it. So this was in January 2015, that there were many, 500 people who were affected in their barangay. So this is just a short clip of the climate of Mindanao. So there are many, many checkpoints in Mindanao. Beautiful, lush, green, and then out of nowhere there is a tank. Wow, surprise. They're not even hiding it, it's just there. Yeah, so this one says infantry, mechanized, something. Second mechanized, it's basically their base. Sorry, I don't know military terms. Okay. Oh no. Yeah. So that was on the way. We went to Maguindanao, and this is Sitio Kapi, another displaced community. So they were also affected by the all-out war in January 2015. And even though we went there in November, we were giving them food because it was important to also give them their basic needs aside from giving them support in other ways. We interviewed this man in the grayish polo. He's a farmer, and he has been going back and forth from Sitio Kapi and Sitio Utsuran, where he was originally from. He moved to Sitio Kapi because of the all-out war, but he farms in Sitio Utsuran because he cannot farm in the area that they're in. So he goes there every day to farm and then comes back here in Sitio Kapi to sleep. These are other interviews. So yeah, so they farm and then they sell their food. Yeah. And then this one is in Mama Sapano, also in Maguindanao. Who has heard of the Mama Sapano incident? Can you raise your hand? Yes. The Mama Sapano massacre. There's a lot of news, media coverage for Mama Sapano and the SAF 54, but none of them actually talk about the affected MILF and BIFF fighters. So these were, we had the chance of sharing with the MILF widows of Mama Sapano. So this is Mama Sapano. So he's saying that they were coming from there and they came in. So he's saying that this area is protected by the MILF, or the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, who are the Moro freedom fighters. And the AFP, or the SAF 54, is the Armed Forces of the Philippines. So this is basically the area where the massacre happened. So what he was saying is that the MILF or BIFF, they have a procedure with the AFP on how to conduct the encounters or the confrontations. And what happened was today in this incident is the AFP didn't tell MILF that they were coming and going to do this horrible thing. So they were very surprised. And because it was their area, they were able to defend it. So I believe, yeah, so there were 54 SAF or Special Armed Forces who were killed, and about 7 to 8 MILF and 4 BIFF. So this is the bridge where they talked about this bridge a lot because they said that that bridge has been like that for years. If you see, they're just like sticks put together. But after the Mama Sapado incident, they created this bridge to facilitate better, I don't know, transportation. So this was Ninoy Aquino's project. They spent 50 million pesos on this right after the Mama Sapado massacre. There you go, Daily Bridge. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is Ligwasan Marsh, which is, it has many natural resources and gases, trillions of dollars. And this is one of the reasons why they are targeting this Maguindanao area. It's because of Ligwasan Marsh. So the Lumad, I'm gonna fly through this because I don't have a lot of time. So this was in Compostela Valley. We were there, this is us, with dill, because it was a natural repellent. So we wore dill on our faces. They had flag ceremony, which was great. We brought notebooks for education. Salugpungan is a school. We had culture share where the students performed, and they were singing songs that were really deep, talking about their struggles. We had art session talking about the art is talking about like the military, that they don't want the military to be there, that they just want to be at peace. I'm going to show you that. So this is the surprise kind of like thing that happened in Cebu and Compostela Valley. The Bayan Peace Mission was involved in like a negotiation because if you see this little house here, the AFP camped out of the school, and they were actually asking for like, where are the U.S. citizens? Where are the American citizens? And there's also the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, where military are not allowed 500 meters from a school, and they're literally like outside the school. This is where they are, and the school is like the middle building over there. So that's not 500 meters at all. Yeah, so they had their guns, everything, and then we were part of the process where the community had to decide, are we going to leave or are we not? Are we going to evacuate or quit? They didn't want to be caught in the middle of like any altercations or any, if their enemies came. So yeah, so they decided to quit. Children, elders, everyone, even the Compostela Farmers Association and other people's organizations was part of this conversation. It was about 2 days, 3 days probably, and they decided to leave everything. Before we left, we were just planting radishes, and now we had to leave. Some of them just came from Manila Bayan, and then the next day they had to leave again. So this was the last shot that I took before my camera died. This is family leaving, and then if you see, there's like a rainbow on the side, and then the school is on the other side. So that was very emotional, highly intense. So yeah, that's it for this portion of the Lumad. So basically, their land is getting grabbed because there's a lot of U.S. Backed companies who want to mine their land. So that's why they are being forced out of it. Beautiful.
Great, thank you, Ruthie. So there was also another trip during that time. A few exposurists were able to go visit the northeast region of Mindanao, the Caraga region. And so as we listen to these stories of different immersion trips in the Philippines, I think this helps contextualize the need for something like the International League of People's Struggle to really be able to uplift these stories and forge solidarity between movements. And so I'll let Casey, Lauren, and Janine talk about their trip to Caracas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janine Ventura, and I'm a member of Gabriela New York. So I'm going to talk very briefly about, just to give a background about our trip to the Caracas evacuation center. So just to quickly sum up what folks have already said, Margaret mentioned that people don't just let imperialists take over their land. So we're going to talk about how this resistance continues to play out in the Philippines as in the International League of People's Struggle, how we talked about how this plays out globally. And also Nat mentioned neoliberal policies and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and essentially what is happening in Mindanao would just be exacerbated multiple times, infinite times over, should the Philippines sign on to it, as they mentioned earlier. And that monopoly capitalism, like Bill mentioned, is how it was born out of economic crisis. And if you're not aware, currently there is a global economic crisis, which is why these kinds of situations, the militarization, the economic plunder is intensifying in these recent years. And then Lynn also talked about the APEC and how here, where all these countries coming to Manila to talk about these policies that would have these disastrous effects on people and people's lives. And we were the only ones at the ILPS assembly that were actually talking about human beings and what was happening with their lives. And then finally, Ruby also mentioned that Mindanao is resource rich, and we will talk about how rich the actual region of Caracas is, which is a portion of northeastern Mindanao. So quick situationer, and I didn't realize there was animation, sorry. So it's the northeast region of Mindanao, right? If you can see Caracas, the blue section, with Agusan del Norte, Agusan del Sur, Surigao del Sur, and Surigao del Norte. Several of us in this room have visited that region, so raise your hand if you've gone to Caracas. So you can see the situations that we're talking about. Not only are they human rights violations that are happening, like a lot of us in this room are connected, personally connected, not only politically connected, but also personally connected. So it's 1.8 million hectares. So it's a large landmass in the Philippines and also Mindanao. So there are many resources, and the primary way that the people have a livelihood is through agriculture, and then the secondary way is through marine life, or as fisherfolk. And then, but this is the reason why imperialists come, right? I mean, also for the agribusiness, but more than 70% of the land is forested, and it's the third largest in the Philippines, and there's been much logging that's been happening in the Philippines since the 1960s. But just take a look at the mineral deposits alone. I mean, this is in the world, right? This is not in the Philippines, this is not in Mindanao. We have, in Canada alone is the world's largest iron ore deposit. Gold, the third largest in the world. Copper, fourth largest in the world. Nickel, fifth largest in the world. If you have a cell phone, you have a computer, where a Ustream is, all that nickel is in there, and this is why so many people are coming to plunder it. The largest coal reserve, not in the world, but the largest coal reserve, and if you know how the Philippines operates, they depend on carbon. And I'm running out of time. Okay, so 23 of the 48 large-scale mining corporations are in the country are in Caracas, so it's almost half. And then the other side to plunder is militarization, right? Like Margaret said, people don't roll over and let people take their land. People fight back. But what happens is the state fights back too. And this is, if you can see in the upper northeast region, where all those dots are, that like inset, that's Caracas. And there's a reason why all the military is deployed there, to protect all those mineral ores that I just mentioned. So finally, what happens, of course, with the twin phase of plunder is extrajudicial killings. And on September 1st, in the Caracas region was a killing. There have been many extrajudicial killings in this area, but what catalyzed this evacuation that is still ongoing, where Teresa Endoso, who was mentioned earlier, a member of INFI New York, who's still in this evacuation center. These three leaders were killed in this community, which several of us in this room have visited. O'Neill Campos, who is the president or the head of MAPASU, which is an indigenous organization. Dahibelio Sinzo, And also Enrico Samarca is the executive director of an indigenous high school in this area. These two pictures are pictures from the expo that several of us from Gap, New York went on in 2014. When we met them, lived with them, and they were killed in front of the community by the paramilitary on September 1st. So this is their calls. If you can see in the back of the posters, you can see how their bodies were left. So Datu Bello and O'Neill Campos were shot in front of after the community was forced to congregate in one area of the area, and separated, basically killed in front of all the families, women, children, etc. Sir Emma was killed in the actual school. He was stabbed with a bayonet and also shot. So as you know, obviously not only did they have to leave the community, but they had to also leave all of the schools. And the way they look at the schools is like the last bastion to resistance. It's the last way that mining corporations cannot enter the area, because here students are learning, you know, the AFP can't be outside of here. The armed forces can't be in our school. The armed forces can't be in our barangay hall. They actually can't even be in our community. And they learn about their indigenous people's rights and what it means to stay on their ancestral land. And this kind of terror is exacted on these communities to force an evacuation. Think of it as like logging. It's like logging people. It's like cutting down people and forcing them to displace to clear the land. Okay, now I'll give it to Lauren.
Thank you, Janine. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Quijano. I'm with Anacraya, New York. And I really want to start off talking about the conditions of the evacuation center by telling you that we're really excited to present to you, because this is exactly what folks in the Philippines asked us to do. They asked us to tell you in person what they would like you to see. So I just wanted to make that very clear. This is the direct ask of us. Okay? All right. So going to the evacuation center was quite a journey. We took a plane from Manila to Caraga, and then there was a long bus ride along the windy mountain roads that you all saw that were affected by the mining, as you saw, and then we ended up here at the sports complex. And this is just a photo of what the evacuation center looks like upon arriving. So you can see that it's lined up with tents, just taking up all of the space. And I also want to point out most of these tents and most of the structures were actually built by the Lumad. So it wasn't like it was set and prepared for them to retreat there. They built all of this, you know, themselves, the tents. This is a photo of the school that we saw. So again, like Janine said, education is protection, but education is also, it's based on what the community needs, and the whole community contributes to making sure that all the Luma children are also educated even while they are staying in the evacuation center. Okay, so this is a photo of one of the tents. So a family of 6 or more can be housed in one of these tents, and I actually made a mistake while I was there because there was a lot of rainstorms, and to get out of the rain, I ducked underneath the tent and jumped onto one of these, one of the bamboo huts in the home, and I didn't take off my shoes. So I actually left it quite muddy, and I felt really embarrassed because the family was cleaning it after I left and went back into the rain, and then I went back to help clean it. But this is an example, because of the conditions in the evacuation center and with it being so rainy, the Luma do so much just to maintain where they are right now, the cleanliness of their home. This is an example of the kitchen area. So the Lumad are already very collective in the way that they take care of each other, which is one of the reasons why they're able to survive in the evacuation center. Otherwise, honestly, if they didn't have the system to rely on each other, they would not be where they are now, still being able to maintain their community and to survive. So This is a great photo of fish that they were frying. Fresh fish is very difficult to come by in the evacuation center. And everybody takes turns cooking and cleaning, and actually everyone's tasks are displayed in the kitchen area so that you can see what your task is. Here is an example of the bathing area. So to the photo to the left is actually the bathing area, and where you know, poop and pee and stuff. Sorry, I don't know the eloquent way to say it. And the shower, you know, cleaning area, and the laundry area as well. So it's all in one spot. There are only 3 areas where they're able to do that are designated in the entire evacuation center. Mind you, there's between 3,000 and 5,000 people in the sports complex alone. 1,500 or so are children. And that was that. When we were actually at the center, they even gave us a whole bucket of water that each of us could use. We even used one of the toilet centers that had a toilet that you could flush with the tablo or with the pail, and not everybody is even able to do that in the evac center. So we were really grateful for them being so accommodating to us, even if we're just visiting. And I want to point out also, a majority of the LUMAT are farmers. You know, they have a farmer lifestyle. So even though they have these things in the evacuation center, it is also something that they have to, I guess, adapt to, like maintaining a home on this tennis court. That's the photo to the right there, just maintaining it, keeping it clean. So this is an example of the rainstorm that we experienced, and it's very difficult to sleep in the evacuation center because the rain is constantly on and off. So this causes sleep deprivation for a lot of the LUMAT, and they need their energy in order to maintain the evacuation center. Also because food is so difficult to come by, you know, it's a lot just to maintain that type of energy. So yeah, here's an example of the urban garden. I just want to point out how muddy the floor is there, just to give you an idea of what it's like to walk around the evac center. It's very muddy, and there's a lot of water puddles, and you know, that can make it very difficult to maintain maintain the place. And so the urban garden is good. They're able to grow some crops. They're not the same crops that they're usually able to grow on their homeland, but it's something. So this is another thing we try to do to maintain a source of nutrition and food supply in the VAC center. This is a photo of the food distribution. So once a week, a group of people take a large truck and motorbikes, and they go far away to the market just to purchase whatever they can, and then they bring it back. So that could take a whole day just to do that, and then they just do the distribution. Again, for between 3,000 and 5,000 people, that's a lot to have to be able to share, but they're able to do it. And also with fish as well. This is a rare photo. This photo was actually taken by Teresa, my friend with NFI in New York. She's still there, and this is a more recent photo, so she wanted me to kindly remind everyone that when we went, it was in November, and she's still there. So the evac center continues to change. While we were there, they were still working on the structure. Now there's a little bit more, but still the food rationing is constant. Another thing with the LUMAT lifestyle, you know, here's a photo of a farmer who's bathing a chicken. So they still try to maintain the type of lifestyle they had at home in the mountain area in the evacuation center, despite the different conditions there. So here's an example of the school where the children are learning constantly about the conditions and also about what they're going to do about it. And they're also learning things from writing to arithmetic to just continuing making arts and crafts. And one of my favorite moments of the trip was when I passed by this group of young boys, probably 4 or 5 years old. One of the boys was pointing to this photo of the mining companies, and he told them, look, everything is gone. Everything is destroyed. There's nothing there. What are we going to do? And I think that question, what are we going to do with his group of, you know, his group of friends right there, that says a lot about the LUMAT and the type of education they have. They're not just there learning about the conditions, they're also already formulating how they're going to fix it when they return home. So it's not even just, we want to return home, it's what will we do once we get home. They continue to do arts and crafts to sell, to make additional funds. So a lot of the rattan baskets that you all see, and like a CB2 or a little, Urban Outfitters, whatever, those little thrift shops. Yeah, the Lumad and indigenous folks like the Lumad are making these types of crafts. So if you must buy from the Lumad. And they're great because I love storage too anyway. So this is a photo of the teachers. Now the Al-Qaeda teachers, they're amazing. These are teachers that have been taught by Al-Qaeda, the organization, and they've grown up to want to teach. So they continue to stay despite the dangers that their family and friends tell them, about their lives being at risk every day. And actually, an update, the 2 teachers recently left. So some teachers do leave. That's how dangerous it is. It's real. The Lumad continue to have cultural presentations each time the group visits, the way we visited. And again, as it was already mentioned, their cultural presentations are always about how they continue to fight. Just really quick, I know time is up, but I wanted to show you, that was just one evacuation center. There are a large number of evacuation centers throughout the region. This was the second one that we visited after we left the sports complex. This was in a gymnasium, and basically we spoke with some of the families there. It's different because they're out of the rain, but for the most part, they're also trying to maintain getting food. It could be probably 15 pesos per child per meal, 3 meals a day for the amount of children there. Of course, a place like here, it could be maybe about maybe $2,000 US dollars per week. And that's if there's a lot of people that they need to account for. Otherwise, in a place at the sports complex, it could be about 10,000 US dollars per week to feed every Lumad child. So that just to give an example of how they really do need the additional financial support. And with that, I'll turn it over to Casey, who will talk about the demands and the asks from the Lumad.
Hi everybody, my name is Casey from New York. I'm going to briefly talk to you about the demands of the Lumad people, the people that we met, because we went on this trip not just so we can integrate and learn, but also so we can bring back and gain support for them too, and to help with them in solidarity. So one of the things to take away is that the Lumad people here at the evacuation center, they're still resisting, they're still resilient, and still able to maintain their community despite the harsh conditions in the evacuation center. Like Lauren said, they're maintaining their urban garden. They're still engaging in some livelihood practices, but they're struggling together as a community so that they can work to go back home. And they're fighting to teach and to spread awareness about what's happening too, so that they can return home. So that's one of the main things that we got in visiting the evacuation, to see their resistance and their struggle. Some of their demands, when we met with them, we went in a community sharing where they told us about what happened and also some of the things that they were asking for. One of the things was to share the stories of the Lumad people, their experience and what was happening. That was one of the things that we can do as people here in the U.S. And also to put pressure on our government to end U.S. military aid, and also international pressure on the Philippine government. One of the other things is to bring the murderers of the Lumad people to justice, investigate the officers of the AFP, or the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and to demilitarize Lumad land and Lumad communities. One of the last demands that they asked for is to be able to go home, to bring their communities home so that they can return to their lives and their livelihood. So this was, when we went around, this was some of the general demands that we got in talking to the community members and the community leaders. And we also went on to learn some of the specific demands from MAPASU, which was one of the indigenous organizations representing Lumad people and Lumad organizations, mainly around the Caraga region. So MAPASU, it stands for Persevering Struggle for the Next Generation. And this is the specific demands from the people at these evacuation centers that we visited in Surigao del Sur and Marihata. So the first demand is immediate arrest and prosecution of the armed bandits and paramilitary responsible for the murders of Enrique Sumarca, Tatubelo Sinzo, and also Dianel Campos. The other one is disbandment and disarming of paramilitary groups in Surigao del Sur and Busan del Sur. This is one that didn't make it onto the slide because it was sent to me later. But yeah, to be able to disband and disarm those paramilitary that are operating in the area. Next would be immediate relief and impartial investigation of the responsible Philippine Army, the armed forces of the Philippines, in pursuit of appropriate criminal and administrative charges against them, specifically the commanding officers, and also temporary suspension of military operations in affected municipalities in Surigao del Sur and Busan del Sur for at least 2 to 3 months. The reason why is so that way it can at least stop the military operations so that the communities can rebuild and at least have time to rebuild the communities again. So that's what they're asking for. Number 4 is they're asking for specifically the 75th Infantry Battalion to pull out of Caraga. That's the main military forces there, and yeah, that covers the main demands. So with those demands, one of the things that we can do now is help to support them in reaching these demands and these asks. And some other ways to help is specifically through donations. At the evacuation center, they have some small livelihood projects like doing the urban gardening. Also, they make baskets too, but one of the things that they largely depend on is donations. So that's one of the things that they need help with is specifically funds to be able to get better food because it's hard for them to get fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh fish. And that's one of the things that they need help with. Other ways that you can help is by following them on social media, specifically the Alcadeb, which is the school there at the site, their Facebook page, and Karapatan Caraga Facebook page as well. Our Unify New York member, Teresa Mendoza, who's there, she's actually doing updates on our Instagram, so you can follow that to check also what's going on too. And she's working on getting Vice News, an indigenous news crew, on covering what's happening with Alcadeb and also with the Sulupangan schools there too. So she's working on that. Lastly, one of the exciting things is that the Lumad are actually coming here to do an international tour. So they're going to be coming here soon. Their first stop is Washington, D.C., but they're going to need a lot of help in their tour. So they're asking for monetary help and helping with, provide, funds, but also, resources too. So if you want to get involved in that, that's something that you can talk to any of us, also Janine, Lauren, or I about to start going on that and connect you with that too. So that covers.
Thank you, Katie. How's everyone feeling? Can we do a chant?
Yes!
Long live international solidarity!
Long live international solidarity!
Long live
international solidarity!
Yeah! Woo! All of you. Great, so that's pretty much it for our delegates who went to ILPS and then went to various exposure trips to the Philippines. We tried to collect some post-it notes, but due to time and also number of submissions, we're going to have a very abridged or expedited Q&A session. So the one post-it note that we got is, what is the status of the Northeast USA chapter? Is there any regular coordination among local ILPS affiliates? So do any of our delegates want to answer? And there will be announcements afterwards. Oh, okay. Let me just pass it back. Thank you.
There's another one.
Okay.
Hello. So the answer is simple. There is no Northeast chapter of ILPS. We only have one chapter, that's the US chapter. We do have regional formations based on our objective conditions where it's easier to coordinate the work as regions because it's such a big country, right? So that's the basis why there are regional formations. but there is no regional chapter of ILPS. So currently, the ILPS US chapter was established in May 2012 in Chicago. We elected a chapter coordinating committee, and we have been having conference calls. Our proposal is to have a conference sometime this year, and we're leaning towards Chicago in the fall. It's not going to be a general assembly, it's going to be a conference where everyone is open to attend, and the coordinating committee, which is the leading body of the US chapter, will have an in-person meeting, and hopefully they will also be open for people to attend. So that's where we're at right now in our work.
Thank you, Berna. And of course, fill out those forms if you do want to get involved in ILPS USA. They're in your folder. So we'll take one more question before we go into an announcement from the Migrant Center. Okay. All right. I think I saw a hand though, but okay, let me just read this person. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's just. Okay. We'll do this really fast. So please tell us about missing people who are on terror by CIA-backed governments and refugees, Syria and Afghanistan. I'm sorry.
Yemen,
Oh, Yemen and Iraq. So yeah, do you want to just say your question? Sorry. Is that accurate?
Anybody give us one because they're missing people affection by this.
Okay, great. Does somebody want to talk about that really quickly?
I guess I've got the mic here, so I want to start by saying the one thing that I don't think was said here tonight about Mindanao and the Lumad people struggle is that there are U.S. troops functioning in Mindanao. So part of our demand, even if they didn't ask, should be the withdrawal from those U.S. troops. And that ties us up with the nature of our enemy, where we are here in the belly of the beast. There are U.S. troops back in Iraq, even though President Obama campaigned by saying, I voted against the war in Iraq, and I'm just going to take them out and send them to Afghanistan. They're back in Iraq. There are U.S. troops functioning in Syria. There are U.S. troops in Honduras. The U.S. is maneuvering against Venezuela. So all over the world, the U.S. is still the most aggressive imperialist force. And so I can't really address, I don't know if there's a specific question, but there are millions of people. In Libya, there were 500,000 migrant workers from other parts of Africa working in Libya because the economy was so much better than the rest of Africa. And they've been forced out, displaced. You have this whole migrant crisis in Europe because people are fleeing from the Middle East. So I think the answer is unite and fight U.S. imperialism.
To add on that, you mentioned the strong Palestinian presence in the Fifth International Assembly. We also had, for the first time, representatives of the Kurdish national struggle, and the Kurdistan National Congress joined ILPS. So, can nobody tell you, the wars that are raging in Syria, in Yemen, in Ukraine, these are as much Washington's wars as was the invasion of Iraq. It doesn't matter if the troops on the ground are in U.S. uniforms. The money, the arms come from here. The war in Mindanao also.
Thank you. So just due to time constraints, we're going to move on. So we want to thank the Migrant Center for letting us have our event here. And there will be an announcement about an upcoming event that they are having. If Stephanie Bayo could come up and talk about it. Oh, Valeska.
very quickly. Hi, my name is Waleska. I volunteer here at the Migrant Center. On Wednesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock, we are having a play here called My Name is Rachel Corey. It's based on the American who went over to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians and was killed by the Israelis. It's a one-woman show. Tickets are being sold by the Migrant Center at the front desk, right next door in the bookstore, for $15. So please come out and show support for the Palestinian cause. So.
When and where is it going to be?
Oh, it's going to be right here in Sabadino Hall, again, Wednesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock. So hope to see everybody there. Bring your friends, bring your lovers, bring your pets.
Thank you, Alaska. So I'd like to welcome our last speaker, very special speaker who was a delegate for the ILPS delegate of Australia, who's going to be talking about the Philippine-American War and contextualizing all these things that we've learned. So please welcome Dr. Gil Barringer. Thank you.
Well, we've heard a marvelous evening of talks and discussion. And I would thank all of the presenters, and I would remind Lynn that she is the youngest of the seniors. I'm 82. The Philippine War is little known. When I was growing up in Philadelphia, I never heard of it in my schooling. I heard about the Spanish-American War, but I never was told that the United States attacked the Filipinos and made regime change. There was a Supreme Court, president, a parliament, and all of that was swept away by the American imperialist invasion. It's also the case that when you go to the Philippines and talk to people, when you talk about the Philippine-American War, they say, oh yeah, when they fought the Japanese. They have no idea, most people, they're not taught. And that, of course, is typical of imperialist education and the education given in the neo-colonies, if you will. The Philippine-American War cost somewhere between 200,000 and 700,000. There's a big academic argument about how many people were killed during that war, but that's even 200,000 is a lot of people when you consider the population was only 7 million at that time. So it was a nasty war, and one in which the Philippine people suffered greatly, and the whole political economy, social relations in the country were distorted and remain distorted to this day. I wanted to just talk a little bit about history here. Sorry, I'm a bit of an academic. Former dean of a law school in Australia. Oscar Wilde, of all people, said once, the one duty we owe to history is to rewrite it. And certainly that is important. We need to remember what actually happened to tell the story of the victims of imperialism, not the story as told in our schools and media by the imperial triumphalists. History provides a framework by showing us two things. First, the continuity of imperialism. And second, it presents us from what I call present-mindedness. It shows us what is, has not always been, and thus offers an alternative, a possibility of seeing alternatives if we struggle for them. I wanted to point out the hypocrisy of American imperialism with regard to the Philippines, but also currently and all of the time in between. Of course, we know that today humanitarianism is a basis for imperialist adventures, bringing democracy to various countries, protecting the people. Well, these things were said in much the same way when the decision was announced to go into the Philippines. It would bring civilization, education, and democracy. So there is that continuity. Regime change. Nothing new in Libya, Iraq, Syria, or other countries that have been mentioned tonight. The imperialists are always seeking resources, markets, and strategic positions. And remember, before the Philippines were taken, the Americans, of course, pushed west and conquered all of the native or First Nation people in this country, then went on to Hawaii in 1893, forced Dole and his colleagues, the landowners and plantation owners, etc., made an agreement with the US Navy, and they forced the abdication of the Queen of Hawaii. Now that was a stepping stone to get to the Philippines, which they took another 6 or 7 years later. Ironically, the point of that was that they needed refueling stations and provisioning stations, fresh water and so forth, to get into China to sell them the goods that capitalism was overproducing. Ironic, given which way the goods are traveling now. And I suppose the last thing I wanted to talk about is the continuity of human rights violations. I have pictures of proud US soldiers giving water torture to Filipino civilians. And almost everything that is being done today has been done in the recent past, well, back into Nicaragua and other countries they invaded. Almost everything that has been done, hamleting, free fire zones, disease spreading, you name it, it was started, for the most part, in the Philippines. And let me just add something I would like to say. I was in an international fact-finding mission in October in the same region the last three speakers were, and it blew my mind. It was amazing. But what I wanted to point out is that the demand is to do something about the killings of the 3 leaders on September 1st last year. Those, the killers, the perpetrators of those executions are well known. It is known where they are. But the armed forces of the Philippines created these paramilitary gangs. This is a government policy. They're doing the dirty work for the imperialist powers, for the mega corporations. And in fact, in order to do the dirty work and have deniability, they create what they call paramilitary gangs. They're gangs of thugs. They're death squads. They're extortionists and criminals. They do all sorts of things other than kill you. The governor of the province, we interviewed him, and he said it's well known that the armed forces of the Philippines created these people, gave them the money, the boots, the camouflage uniforms, and the guns. When these death squads or paramilitaries go into a community, they don't wear masks. It's an intimidation process. They want the Lumad off that land. So they announce why they're there and who they are. And they tell the people, you stay here, you'll be killed. But the Lumad resistance is terrific, actually. The evacuation is a political weapon because they're sitting in the middle of Tandag City, in the center, saying, you know, we want to go back, but you've got to do something. In the meantime, the governor's budget is ballooning way out. He's got to do something. So there are all kinds of negotiations going on. But the real problem is, this is the attack on the Lumad, massacres, the harassment, etc., is a government policy, a Philippine government policy. And that it's all on behalf of the plantation interests, palm oil plantations, and mining. Okay, that's about all I want to say is, remember, the leopard doesn't change its spots. Imperialism then and now. Same song, different tunes. In some ways, they're even becoming much more sophisticated, and I was going to mention the TPP as an example. So it's torture, killing, intimidation, harassment, and then the ideological struggle and the economic struggle. So there is a great deal of work to do, and I'm really pleased that you'll be having LUMAD speakers here in the States, touring and getting the word out, because we do need to support them. They're wonderful people, and in a way, their humanity and their collective understanding and the way they've kept their culture is actually something to be admired, and we must help them to maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Long live
international solidarity!
Long live
international solidarity!
Great. So before we close out, we have a few announcements. So I'd just like to bring Ryan up to talk about the Coalition of Immokalee Workers.
Hi. Oh, cool. Hi, my name is Ryan, and like Nina said, I'm from the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, and we're here in town organizing for the 2016 Workers Moista, which I'm going to talk just a little bit about. The Coalition of Immokalee Workers is a group of mostly Guatemalan, Mexican, and Haitian farm workers down in Immokalee, Florida, a tiny little town out of the bottom of Florida. And it was really great actually hearing all of you guys talk about the issues in the Philippines, because a lot of the words were things that we talked about down in Immokalee in terms of displacement, in terms of monopoly capitalism, and the ways that capitalism has transformed the agricultural industry, putting so much stress down on the workers, and the way that so many workers are replaced from their countries by NAFTA in Mexico, CAFTA, which is Central American Free Trade Agreement in Guatemala, US-backed incited civil wars in Guatemala, or political oppression in Haiti from the Duvalier, and just all those forces that brought people to the United States. And then those people even being displaced from their lifestyles. Most of these workers were farmers in their own countries and have been transformed into workers in this country. So the Coalition of Immokalee Workers for me and my work with them has been this really beautiful collective of people fighting this really beautiful way. And so the CIW started in 1994, around the time that NAFTA came into play. And for many years, we're struggling within the communities, focusing on the agricultural companies there to get changes. And there was some progress, but then in 2001, the CIW changed their strategy to focus on these large corporate buyers that were trying to buy so many tomatoes at such a low price, they were just putting so much downward pressure on the workers. So that's when they started the campaign for food towards these large corporate buyers. First one was Taco Bell, then came McDonald's, then Burger King, and now today we have 14 corporations that are participating in our Fair Food program. With this Fair Food program, these corporations are paying a penny more per pound for the tomatoes they buy to give a slightly more living wage to workers, and are also making sure they're only buying from farms that are proven to be supporting human rights in their supply chain. So right now, like I said, we have 14, and we have run our campaign against the 15th Wendy's here to New York. So on March 3rd at 4 p.m., we'll be gathering in Columbus Circle. I have a bunch of flyers, where we start with the rally. Then a little bit later, we're going to be doing a march to the offices of Nelson Peltz. Nelson Peltz is the chairman of the board of the Wendy's Corporation. And this march is calling on him to use his influence to bring Wendy's to the table and to join the Fair Food program. I'll be around. If anyone has any questions about the state interview, what we do, anything about the march, I'll be around. I'll have some flyers in the back and also a sign-up sheet if anyone's interested in learning some more. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Brian. Just to close out the night, we encourage you to stay because Mother Tongue will be performing. I just wanted to thank all the panelists for sharing your experiences, all of you for staying through it and coming to the report back despite the rain. And also, if y'all could just take pictures with these placards because it is the end of our Philippine Solidarity Week. So we have these placards saying advance the National Democratic Movement of the Philippines and in solidarity with the National Democratic Movement of the Philippines. We could take pictures in the back. And if we could, as anti-imperialists, just close out the space with one last chant. This translates to down with imperialism. So when I say imperialismo, you say Ibagsak! Alright, so let's try it. Imperialismo! Ibagsak! Imperialismo! Ibagsak! Imperialismo! Ibagsak! Long live! International solidarity! Long live! International solidarity! Great, thank you! So right now we have Mother Tongue, so please stick around, eat the food that's left, take pictures. And one announcement.
Hi everyone, I'm Nikki of Anagbayan, New York. I'm also a regional rep for Anagbayan, New York for the Bayan USA Northeast region. And on February 25th at 6:30 p.m. in Mayday Space at 176 St. Nicholas Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, we'll be hosting a screening of the film The Girl is a Poet about the life of the intellectual and revolutionary figure Jose Maria Sison, and exploring the impressive and turbulent years of martial law as well as the resistance during that time. So we will be selling tickets for $10. You can either buy them online on the Facebook event. There's a sign-in sheet, and there will be a way to Venmo us. You can Venmo us at Bayan Northeast, or you can buy tickets from the member chapters in the Bayan Northeast region. So Gabriela, New York, Nightshire, Anagbayan, New York, and Anagbayan, New Jersey. Thank you.
Last announcement on April 23rd, 3 to 6. Nightshire is hosting Uprooted Uprising concert. It's going to be a benefit for the Lumad tour, so we need to fundraise to make sure that the people that they were talking about coming from Mindanao will actually be here physically to report back to our communities. So please save the date, April 23rd, 3 to 6 p.m. Thanks.
Another quick announcement, Saturday, March 5th is International Working Women's Day. We're having a march at noon starting in Harlem. So please look on Facebook for International Working Women's Day. We will be out there mobilizing in the streets. Everyone's invited.
All right, so we are going to do this quick song. We are Mother Tongue. It's a song about migration. It's called She Dreams. And we are featuring DJ on the She dreams of things that we wanted, we were meant to say, but still she knows that it's people don't
Live streaming?
DJ, good job.
Okay, stopping. DJ.